Good morning, LinkedIn. Happy Thursday. Welcome to Let's Build Daily. I'm your host, Chris Carolin. Today, we're going to be spending most of our time in the portal, just hanging out in the properties settings area. As HubSpot moves towards customer platform and all the objects for all of the things, some objects have been coming out and it's been like leads. We wanted to create properties for them and we couldn't. And then they became available, but only through the API. There's been a number of objects like that. Well, this week, a lot more is available in the properties area that a number of us have discovered. Some later than others, maybe. But, we're here to kind of go through and check it out and talk about what that could mean for you. So if you really want to follow along, I'm in the Let's Build dev portal here. So haven't really made many properties at all. So I just want to show you, I haven't turned on any betas. I don't have any integrations activated to make this available to me. I think most of this should not depend on which level you have either, at least as far as which properties you're able to see. So if you want to follow along in your portal, though, there's a couple different ways, because you're going to see, if you have custom objects, you're going to see, what's available to you in this dropdown. And if you've made custom objects, you'll see them in here. Like you can see, I've added, the event happily infrastructure into this portal. So you might see some objects on your side. But another way to view this, and the way I discovered this a few months ago, is if you come up here and click export all properties, it gives you a list of objects. And even here, if I just double check this, let's see. Okay, they're both there. When I first did this a few months ago, I was able to see properties in the spreadsheet that I was not able to see in the user interface. So that was one of the first Easter eggs I found as I was starting to explore this stuff. So as I pull this up over here, maybe later, I'm just going to look and see, because, sometimes a spreadsheet does make it easier to look at things in various ways. So we've got it opening up over here. So as we look at the spreadsheet, a great way to see all the architectural and internal information for the properties in your portal. And if we click through, we'll see invoice, lead. I was on cart. Campaigns is something people are excited about. And then we've got orders, which is my favorite one. And we've got 60 properties here. So clearly they've been working on this in related to integrations. I'll try not to focus all my energy on orders today, but it's going to be hard. So I invite you to do that and just check out all the properties in your portal and see if you notice anything new. What else? Data quality sometimes what's going on over here can also link to what might be going on over in the data quality area. So the one place I wanted to check was the data model, actually, to see if we got this stuff showing up yet. We don't. And I'll just say, if you're very interested in seeing the commerce objects and stuff like orders and carts on this screen, please let the team know. Let people like Jack Coopersmith, aka Commerce Smith, know that we're all very anxious to see it show up on this page so we can understand how these objects are working with each other. But something interesting, like a way to kind of maybe backdoor how you can think about associations, is I started to use the back button a couple times, get back to properties, specifically with orders and leads. That was interesting because we're obviously, like, for orders, we're building portals, for people, and we want to show order status. And as we move from a custom object to represent that to the order's native object, what it can and can't be associated with is very important to us. So what I noticed is kind of an interesting way that you can understand what associations might be available to you, even though you can't make new associations or create association labels yet, is when I go to order properties here and I create a property. I'll just select order and do test and go next. And then I select property sync. And it asks me to choose the source record type. And I have cart, company, contact, deal, invoice, line item, and ticket. So these are the other objects. So the inference here is that these are the other objects that already have default associations with the order object. Otherwise, I would not be able to create a sync property. So we've got 7 objects here. If we cancel this out and we go look at leads, and we do same thing, test, and property sync. This is where, even though we can't see it on the data model, we can get some more information here. And of course, your API wizards out there can probably just ping the API whenever you feel like. Not all of us live and die by the API. So we've got some other tools at our disposal. And if we look at lead, we can see only company, contact, and deal, right? Which is interesting. I'll just leave it there. This is where, as these things become available, all the flexibility that people immediately want, right? You can see a path for it, right? Eventually, these objects, one would imagine, and actually Dharmesh on Connor's post yesterday mentioned, like, it's been a 12-year plus journey towards making everything in HubSpot an object, a quote unquote object that can be managed and maintained in very similar ways across the platform. And if you're newer to this, which a lot of people in the HubSpot ecosystem are, this is actually how a lot of other systems, other platforms are built out. The difference is, and I think the value in HubSpot is that like we started from a system that has lots of guardrails and helps you follow best practices as you start to build out your data structure with a focus on the customer specifically. In these other systems, you can make whatever objects you want, right away, and they're not focused on the customer. So you end up with complete administrative messes that drive up the cost of maintenance. People don't adopt it. And when we hear about all these failed digital transformations and failed projects where people spend a ton of money in 3 years implementing ERP, it usually relates to stuff like that, where we didn't have a lot of guardrails. We just have our paper process that we're working with now. Can we build it inside the ERP or inside Salesforce? Yes. Okay. We're gonna do that, and now we're ruining the modern system that's supposed to help us manage data more effectively because we're just bringing it in there so we can get the Word document out that we can edit and then lose all data traceability and data manageability, right? So that's when data goes south as far as cleanliness goes. People don't trust it, then people don't use the system. So having it set up like this is exciting for a lot of us because these data containers, if you will, when they're thought of as separate objects within the system that you want to be associated with certain things at certain times, but maybe other things when new use cases come up, that flexibility is now coming to fruition, and it's very exciting to see. So let's look at, the why. I think there's some lessons to learn at just looking which properties are available. So if we look at the cart, obviously maybe not obviously, but this was, I first saw it in relationship to the new Shopify integration that switched from, deals and products only. Contexts are always going to be a part of these integrations, but switch from deals and products only to orders, carts, and products towards in the second half of last year. So a huge shift, right? So in order to make that shift, HubSpot has to develop the object to hold the cart data and order data that's coming over from Shopify. The order object itself has also benefited from improved integrations with Dynamics and NetSuite. And that's actually another place, not to go too tangential, like there's a couple, or at least this app, like if you look at this NetSuite integration, I don't know if Ryan Gunn has sent out his newsletter yet, but he was going to share an article from NetSuite 8 about this integration, which is enough for some, but not enough for many. Shows you, one, it gives you an idea of all of the things that might need to be connected to an external system in HubSpot, but also the different ways these other systems label these things, classify these things. And I think as you expand into customer platform mode and mindset inside your org, if they've never used HubSpot outside of marketing, before, and you start talking to these teams in terms of orders and tickets and deals, and they're named these other things, that's always been a less than fun conversation to talk about the difference between opportunities and deals. As an example of just imagine that on every object level. Like the fact that like products are almost always going to look like items in these other systems, assembly items. And there's actually like all these different ways to classify products, and they're all going to come into this singular product library in HubSpot. So what does the product library need to look like to support all these different classifications? This is one of the reasons why, we created the deliverable object, because products and line items by themselves are not set up to receive this information, in a more meaningful way, because a lot of these items, as they get, warehoused and manufactured and produced, they go through pipelines, they go through stage and gate processes, and we don't have pipelines available to us in products or line items at the moment. Once you do, now you have a place to bring the information into HubSpot that we can throw up on a customer portal, and it can be made very easy for the customer to understand the status, of their order and everything in the order, because they might have some resale items, they might have some packages, they might have some stuff that was on the shelf, they might have some stuff that needs to be made, right? We can show, all of these things, and we just need a place for that data that makes sense in HubSpot. Traditionally, like if you look at like before this this new integration and this push towards customer platform, most of the accounting integrations and ERP integrations look like this, and I alluded to it with the Shopify integration, where it's some semblance of, this one doesn't even integrate with deals, but contacts companies and deals over and over and over. That's where everything's got to go. Well, we don't live in that world anymore. So when we think about properties like shipping and billing addresses, right? We really should not have properties like that on the deal if we can avoid it. That should be pulling from, in my opinion, from parent or child company objects that are associated with the deal. And once you can make that designation, and we start to get into the territory of, how does accounting get involved if we got to do credit checks or credit approvals, right? Now somebody coming, and like just this process, I think inside the HubSpot ecosystem, we take some stuff for granted. So when somebody says credit approval process, it's easy to overthink, what they mean and how we set that up, when in reality, it's a form. It could be on a landing page, could be just by itself, published. It's a form that might create a company, object and a contact object, or records rather. And it sends a notification to the accounting team or whoever's got to approve it and check the credit. That person comes in, they check the box that says credit approved, and now the team can move forward. Instead of this, like, what happens now is where you got sales trying to move forward with a deal. Now, in order to be able to quote, they've got to send information to the accounting team, because we generally don't want non-customer information in the ERP yet, which is where this usually takes place. So we just send the information manually via email, and accounting does more manual input of information. None of this gets saved, right? Because they have nowhere to put it yet. It doesn't belong in the accounting yet because the person's not a customer, right? They give the green light to sales, and now sales can move forward. Instead, very easily in HubSpot, we can set up that form notification process where here's a link, check the box. Like, how much time are we saving when we're able to do stuff like that, right? And I went there because I was trying to qualify why I was saying it shouldn't be on the deal? Because creating this separation now allows for stuff where these external systems, these accounting systems, where the operations teams and accounting teams actually own the company objects, actually own, like, can we do business with this person? Are they good? Are they credit approved? That's not in the hands of sales anymore. So when we start to mix and match between, billing and shipping addresses, whether they're on the company or the deal or the contact, right? You create different ownership of the data, because accounting is not going to, I mean, they if our process supports it, like, it probably wouldn't hurt for them to see deals, but I'm sure sales would love to have everybody just butt out of their deals. But when there's accounting information inside of those and nowhere else, like, that's where they got to go, right? So starting to create some separation of kind of ownership and accountability within the system goes a long way. And these properties and the ability to customize, help with that, and just creating these other places. We don't have to shove everything into deals, contacts, companies, and tickets anymore. And we don't have to create custom objects even like we used to. We've got all these new options to consider. I'm not saying everybody rushes over and changes their process, but as we start to look at process and how we start to use this stuff, right? And as we integrate with other systems, because so often, like, if we don't know about this list, right, and then we come over here back to NetSuite, this is where HubSpot and the people using HubSpot have no leverage, have no skin in the game, have no credibility. Like, if you can't speak to this stuff and you can't immediately tell me where it's going to go in HubSpot, then NetSuite all of a sudden is the source of truth. Like, no matter what, and HubSpot is this accessory system, right? So as you're starting to, if you've got stuff to integrate with as it relates to business processes, not necessarily, all the marketing stuff we're used to seeing right before the sale, but like quote to cash and post sale stuff, right? If you're integrating with other systems, you should get really intimately familiar with what's available to you in HubSpot already, because that should be able to give you some ideas. Like, now we don't have to send this information to the deal just to report on it. We're going to have orders, right? And what does that mean? Right? We're going to have a place for this, a place for stuff like, billing and shipping as it relates to the specific orders. Hopefully in a lot of cases, it's going to be, automated from a deal closed that is associated with certain company records, and those company records are associated with and integrated with the ERP, right? And just having this available, like, a lot of the conversations that are going to come up are, okay, so sales orders goes one way, right? Because the intent and the traditional way of doing things is we don't do orders outside of the ERP. In this case, we don't do orders in HubSpot. So what does that mean? We are syncing bidirectionally opportunities and deals. Then when a deal closes in HubSpot, it tells NetSuite. NetSuite creates an order, and now NetSuite tells HubSpot that the order has been made and brings the information back over. When we decide that HubSpot is the communication platform for the business, or it's the customer experience platform for the business, there's real reason to, at the very least, consider But our recommendation is to choose that it actually goes the other way. If HubSpot is serving the role of communications, why wouldn't we create the order in HubSpot first and send it over? Because once you have those positions with HubSpot as the communication, customer 360-degree view, that means we're counting on the ERP to do ERP things. And that is manage all the non-people data and non-people processes related to products, related to the stuff, right? Because what we do when we create this loop in this way instead, now we're having to adhere with some very interesting restrictions as far as somebody set up, like, you can only put 10 characters in this field that we constantly need more than 10 characters for, but we've created all these abbreviations and acronyms that nobody else could possibly understand. And then we expect to be able to put it on a customer portal where they won't understand it either, right? We've got all these partners that we work with that we know them as number 17. Yep, that's these guys. Well, when somebody new gets trained, how long is it going to take them to remember who 17 is, right? So we just start to create, like, if you can position HubSpot like that in your mind and with your clients and with your users, it makes more sense for customer facing, for customer related processes to be driven by HubSpot in support of what needs to happen, in this case, oftentimes from a manufacturing perspective, right? So take a look at these properties. And like I said, like, I'm hyper focused on quote to cash and post sales and resale, upsell, cross sell stuff. So that's where my focus is. But I'm sure the same things can be said when it comes to marketing events, marketing campaigns, right? Just be aware. And this is where, like, you can do you need to get in here yourself and check it out and click on some stuff, right? What can you do with lists now that you have easy access to understanding these pieces of information, right? This is why I advocate for, just coming in and looking at stuff. Even contact properties. This default number has grown significantly. And if we look in cumulative time in these different stages, or there's been a lot of stuff related to like life cycle stage reporting, deals they've recently added, I think, like cumulative time in, date entered, a bunch of these fields. Like, we never used to have 91 default properties. And then decide, like, how it can work for you as far as a system that you can maintain and understand and also explain to other people, right? Because some of these additions are the difference between should we do this in NetSuite or should we do this at HubSpot, and that decision can have a huge impact. I mean, half the reason that most companies want to integrate these systems is because the customer facing teams, when they have to go and do their job out of an ERP, it sucks. Honestly, it's not as easy to use. It's not as, like, data isn't easily available. So we got to dig. In HubSpot, it's a different story, as we all know. So if we can get the data over there, and now the customer facing team only has to live in HubSpot, but the data is supported by an integration with the ERP, now how far ahead are we, right? How much time are we saving? How much stress are we saving, right? And if you don't know what is available to you when it's right here, in the portal, right? Just take a minute, gain that understanding. But again, find a way that helps you explain it. So, and communicate it to others. Right. So this is one view. And sometimes just getting on a screen share with somebody and helping them go through it. This is even when they have access, to HubSpot. I wouldn't just share this URL and say, hey, check this out. Right. Usually takes more hand-holding than that. So this is one way. We've got, the spreadsheet we looked at is another way. And this is actually another version where, let me see here. Yeah. Where, I start to highlight some various fields and trying to, bring them into a different visual, which is what I've been working on in Canva. And if you're in Sprocketeer community or haven't joined there, the community-led HubSpot mapping channel, where you can see more of this information. But starting to make it easier for others to understand the value of these different objects and different places for data to reside so that we can all do our jobs better for the customers, right? And once you have it, visualized like this, right, then come over here, right? Now these other visualizations are possible where it's like, hey, maybe we take it from the website form and we bring it into our contact record, right? And now we can divvy up the properties and help people understand, okay, during the sales process, during the success process, what needs to be filled in when, why does it need to be filled in, how does it need to be filled in, why do we have the data formatted that way? Just finding different ways to help people understand a visual story can often go a long way in understanding the value of doing things in HubSpot versus other platforms or versus in the spreadsheet, right? So definitely come in, take a look at these, hit that export button. Each platform is going to be different, and just take a look, see where you're at, find that opportunity, and let's grow. Have a great day, everybody.